I remember the first time Marcus laughed at me, not the playful laugh of a man teasing his woman, but the kind that cut through my chest like broken glass. We were sitting at his cousin. Cookout, red plastic cups sweating on the folding table, music heavy in the air. I had just told a story about how my father used to patch my school shoes with scraps of rubber when I was a child. I meant it as a moment of pride, a reminder of resilience. But Marcus smirked, shook his head, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Man, you stayed broke even back then." The crowd chuckled, and my smile froze, caught somewhere between shame and rage. That was the moment I realized he didn't see me. He only saw what he thought I lacked. From then on, Marcus found ways to remind me of it. He'd point out the designer purses other women carried, linger on the cars they drove, and then glance back at me with that same mocking grin. At first, I told myself it was harmless, just insecurity dressed as arrogance. But over time, those small cuts became wounds. His voice followed me into every room. "You AI. Never had nothing. You ain't never gonna be nothing." And deep down, I wondered if he was right. Yet what Marcus didn't know, what I didn't tell him, was that my father had left me something far more powerful than money. My father had left me a lesson, carved into every sacrifice, every scar, every unspoken word. A lesson I didn't yet understand, but one I would soon use to turn Marcus's laughter into silence. That summer, bills stacked on the kitchen counter like bricks in a wall I couldn't climb. I was working double shifts at the hospital, coming home to Marcus sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, dreaming aloud about investments he never made, businesses he never started. When I pressed him about finding work, he flipped it back on me, accusing me of nagging, of acting like I was better than him. But better didn't matter. What mattered was that every day he mocked my grind, even while living off the fruit of it. One night, after a particularly brutal argument, I stood in the bathroom staring at myself in the mirror. My reflection looked like a stranger, tired eyes, clenched jaw, shoulders sagging beneath invisible weight. I thought of my father then, how he used to say, "Baby girl, strength ain't in showing off what you got. Strength is in what you survive and what you build after." I whispered those words back to my reflection, clinging to them like a lifeline. But even in my darkest hour, Marcus found a way to sink deeper into my spirit. He began calling me charity case in front of his friends. He joked that I should thank him for giving me a taste of a real man's world. And while his laughter echoed, I stayed quiet, waiting, collecting every word. Like fuel for a fire he didn't know I was about to set. Because what Marcus didn't understand was that life has a way of circling back, of testing the same wounds until you learn the lesson hidden inside them. And when the moment came, when my father's quiet legacy revealed itself, Marcus would finally learn what real wealth looked like, and that mocking a woman who had already survived fire was the gravest mistake of his life. But before that reckoning came, there was more pain to endure, more nights where I almost gave up. And yet, each of those nights was a step closer to the twist Marcus never saw coming. And if you're still here, listening closely, let me ask you, have you ever had someone laugh at your struggle, only for fate to hand you the last laugh? Stay with me, because what comes next will show you exactly why revenge tastes so sweet when it's served cold. The morning after that cookout, I woke up to Marcus humming in the kitchen like he owned the sun, bacon snapping in the pan, gospel radio low, a scene that should have felt like home if not for the way he looked over his shoulder and smirked. "You good?" he asked, like nothing in his mouth the night before had turned to knives. I nodded, because some battles ain't worth the bruises before work, and because the hospital was waiting, beeping monitors, tired mothers, the scent of antiseptic like rain that never falls. "Your shoe okay?" he added, fake concern curling around the words. "Would hate for you to scuff them charity souls." I stared at the clock instead of him. 6:12. If I left now, I could hit the number 12 bus and still sneak a coffee. I'm gonna be late, I said, and he shrugged like I had made up lateness to avoid his mouth. He kissed the air near my cheek. I let it miss. At the bus stop, I called Mama. She heard it in my voice before I spoke. What'd he say now? She asked, the way seasoned mothers ask when they already know. Nothing I can't handle, I said, a lie thick as cold syrup. Your daddy used to remind folks a roof ain't protection if there's a leak right over your bed. She murmured, don't let that boy lay his leak on you. Mama kept a Bible on the couch arm, and my father's old blue work jacket hanging by the door. As if he might come back from the shop any minute smelling like oil and peppermint. He had. Passed 2 years ago, quietly, like he didn't want to inconvenience anyone. We buried him in a suit he'd worn only once, the day he walked me across the stage at my nursing pinning ceremony. He had squeezed my fingers and whispered, doors, baby girl, learn which ones to open, learn which ones to close. By noon, the floor was chaos, code blues that rose and fell like tides, a woman crying in Spanish for a mother who lived one border too far. I moved through it on muscle memory, gloving and charting and catching eyes that needed steady. But my own steadiness felt like a performance I couldn't rehearse longer. In the break room, Tasha sat across from me, nails the color of cranberries, eyes glossy with gossip and concern. You look like you ain't slept in a month, she said. Marcus still auditioning for Petty of the Year. I laughed because sometimes humor's a door you can open to sneak air. He got the part, full season order. Girl, let that man go, she said gently. You been patching him like them rubber soles your daddy made. The words hit me in a place my pride had wallpapered over. I sipped my coffee and stared at the bulletin board on the wall, flyers for yoga, a CPR class I could teach in my sleep, a notice about unclaimed packages at security. That's when I saw it, a smaller white envelope tacked crooked. My name handwritten in a familiar tight script. It must have slipped from my locker earlier, or maybe it had been placed there by the universe itself. My heart knocked twice. I slid it into my pocket, fingers trembling. At home, the envelope waited until Marcus left to handle business. That never produced income. I sat on the bed with the letter opener my father used to keep by his recliner, the handle smooth from decades of bills. Inside, a typed note on cream paper from a law office downtown. Estate of Samuel Ojusanya, final probate release. My father's name unfurled like a flag. I read on. Legal, clean phrases talking about delayed disbursement, asset transfer, leasehold, interest. There was a key taped to the bottom, old brass, worn with age, a tiny tag stamped. Unit B. My breath stuttered. I thought of Daddy's hands, dark and nicked, setting bolts and loosening stubborn screws. He never talked much about money. He talked about work, about dignity, about not letting shame dry into a shell you can't crack. You don't measure a person by what they hold up to the light, he used to say. Measure them by what they carry in the dark. The door opened. Marcus swept in with cologne loud enough to announce his plans. He saw the paper in my hand and grinned, a predator smelling something sweet. What's that? He asked, sliding close. We rich now, that a check. It's nothing, I said quickly, folding the letter in half. I don't know why I said it, instinct. Childhood reflex to tuck treasure where no one can scuff it. His eyes dropped to the key. He reached for it. I slipped it into my pocket and stood. Damn, why you secretive? He laughed, too casually. Why you always act like you got some thing? The way he said thing made me feel 12 again, counting change for the dollar store. I let the silence sit between us long enough for him to feel small in it. I'm tired, I said. I got another double tomorrow. He rolled his eyes and walked past me. Nurse money got you thinking you somebody. That night I dreamed of doors. Some slid open like sighs, others stuck, swollen with weather. One door had my father's jacket hanging on the knob. When I turned it, the key at my hip. Warmed like a coin in sunlight, I woke before I could see what waited inside. If you're still here, lean a little closer. This is where stories turn. You ever held a key and not know whether it opens trouble or freedom? Hit subscribe if you want the truth unspool with me. Because the door I opened next didn't just change my life, it made Marcus choke on his own. Laughter. The next day, I told Marcus I was covering a shift. Instead, I took the 22 downtown. The law office sat on the 4th floor of an old building that had once been a bank. The vault door now, a decorative relic at the end of the hall. A receptionist with white hair and red lipstick smiled, without asking questions, and led me to a conference room that smelled like polish and generational wealth. Mr. Patel, the attorney, shook my hand, warm and brief. "Your father was a methodical man," he said, sliding a folder toward me. He didn't believe in big talk. He believed in ledgers. It took time to clear everything, but here we are. He opened the folder. Deeds, photographs, a map with a block highlighted in yellow, my lungs. Forgot their job. The tag on the key pressed into my leg like a signature. Marcus thought poverty had taught me to accept crumbs. He didn't know it had taught me how to chew in quiet rooms and remember who fed me. I ran my palm over the paper, felt history. Crackle like a paper bag. Fragile, practical, full of something you need to carry home. I left that office with the folder pressed tight to my chest, like if I let it breathe, Marcus would smell it from across town. The folder wasn't just paper. It was weight, history, a hidden inheritance no one had bothered to brag about. My father had never spoken of land, never hinted at buildings, never dropped those breadcrumbs men sometimes used to puff their chests. He had simply worked, quietly, faithfully, stacking bricks in secret so one day his daughter could walk taller. The map showed a cluster of units on the edge of downtown, brick buildings that had survived gentrification by sheer stubbornness. One of them, Unit B, was circled in red. The deed listed my father as sole owner. My heart thundered. This wasn't just some forgotten locker or dusty storage shed. This was property, income, security, a piece of the city with my father's name written across it like a benediction. That night, I tucked the folder beneath the floorboard in the closet, the same place I used to hide diary pages from Mama's curious eyes. Marcus was sprawled on the couch, basketball game. Flashing blue across his face, a half-empty bottle of Hennessy sweating on the table. He did look up when I came in, didn't ask how my shift went, but I could feel his eyes flick toward me. Once, sharp, suspicious, like a man who knows treasure exists even when he can't yet smell it. "Long day," he muttered. "Yeah," I said, slipping past him. He chuckled low. You don't even look tired." I shut the bedroom door before he could pry further, and that night I dreamt again of my father. This time standing in front of a building, his jacket open, his hands held out like an invitation. The next morning, while Marcus was gone, I took the bus to the address circled in red. The building rose up from the street like it belonged to another era. Faded brick, iron bars on the windows, a door that sagged but still stood. The key in my pocket slid into the lock like it had been waiting decades for me. Inside, dust stirred in the light like restless spirits, but the bones were strong. The smell of old wood, of iron, of something earned but never flaunted. There were boxes stacked against one wall, ledgers with my father's handwriting, receipts from tenants who had once paid rent and crisp bills folded carefully. My knees weakened. My father had owned this place outright, no bank breathing down his neck. He had left it for me. I sat on the dusty floor, tears cutting lines down my cheeks. For the first time in months, I felt something Marcus could never take away, pride. But fate is a hungry thing, and secrets have a way of slipping through cracks. That evening, Marcus cornered me in the kitchen, his tone half joking, half venom. "You got something to tell me?" he asked, eyes narrowing. "No." You sure? You been walking around like you found buried treasure. He stepped closer, the smirk spreading. Where you been yesterday? You ain't smell like hospital. I kept my face steady, voice low. Work. He studied me, then laughed, sharp and short. See, that's the thing about broke folks. They can't hide it when they come up. It leaks out. I turned away, but inside my chest, a new fire was burning. Marcus thought he was still mocking. The same woman who had swallowed shame at a cookout. What he didn't know was that I now held a legacy that made his laughter sound small. And if you've ever been underestimated, you know the sweetest revenge isn't shouting your worth, it's letting time and truth silence your doubters for you. Stay with me, because Marcus was about to learn that, when you mock a woman's struggle, you might just choke on the wealth she's been quietly building behind closed doors. I knew the danger of secrets, especially in a house where Marcus's curiosity was sharpened by jealousy. For 2 weeks I guarded the folder and the key like sacred scripture. I slipped out early, visiting Unit B on my days off, sweeping the dust, airing out the rooms, running my fingers along the walls as if my father's fingerprints were still pressed into the mortar. Each time I stood there, I felt taller. The silence inside that building was not emptiness, it was promise.